As we begin this special town meeting, let us reflect on the core values of our community and what makes the quality of our life and the lives of our children and grandchildren. Let us remember and be guided by those who served as town meeting members in prior generations and made the important decisions that formed the foundation of this great community. Let us strive to follow their lead and balance the tensions between economics and future benefits. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just three quick motions. It's moved and seconded that the town meeting authorize the following non-town meeting members to sit at the front: the town manager, assistant town manager, the comptroller, and the town council. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. It's moved and seconded that the town meeting authorize the members of the finance committee who may not be town meeting members to also sit at the front of the hall. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. And the last preliminary motion, it's moved and seconded that the cable TV be allowed to televise this event. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could make a few opening remarks, particularly for those visitors that we have here who may have only been here by television. The town meeting members only sit in the front seats and the visitors sit up back. And so if there's anybody here in the front that's not a town meeting member, you can discreetly sneak out while I'm talking. Ladies and gentlemen, as we enter tonight, we have a very short window on a very, very big decision for the town of Winchester. And that window closes on the 15th of March when the town must exercise an option if they choose to purchase these so-called Hamilton Farm. And on 3/13, if the town meeting votes in the affirmative, the town will be voting on an override in the amount of approximately $13.5 million. And so our job here tonight is to decide what we want to do with this property and what action we want to take. The decision is complicated by the question of what are we going to do with the property if we purchase it. And as I look at it, if you were to generally describe the options, there would be three. You could buy it and preserve it as is. You could buy it and preserve part of it and build, based on the bids that we've received, 100, 88, 60, 47, or 10 units of housing, and the range of prices of the sale range from $5 million to $13.5 million. And finally, we could buy it and make the decision later. Now, the way the town meeting is going to be run is that there are three articles that relate to the purchase or non-purchase of the so-called Hamilton Farm. Article 1 is to see if the town chooses to buy the property. Article 2 relates to the sale of the property. And Article 3 is to authorize the Board of Selectmen to exercise the option. Option 3 is a no-brainer. It'll all depend on how we vote on option 1 and 2. Option 1 and 2 take a 2/3 vote of the town meeting members that are here, because it's the Article 1 involves the bonding and Article 2 involves the sale of land. The way this meeting is going to be run will be just like we run all our town meetings, with one exception. We're going to start with Article 1, and the proponent of that article, which in this case happens to be the Board of Selectmen, will be the first speakers. And after they present their case, then because this is a financial matter, it has been customary in Winchester's town meeting to immediately after that presentation ask for a recommendation of the Finance Committee. The reason you do it up front is so that everybody in town meeting who is making up their mind knows what the recommendation is right up front, as opposed to waiting till just before we vote. All people who speak after Mr. Howley, who will be speaking for the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Howley has 10 minutes to make his presentation and one extension for whatever time the town meeting chooses to give him. All other speakers, starting with the chairman of the Finance Committee, get 5 minutes and an extension for whatever time they want, and no speaker can speak more than twice on the same motion. Anybody in the town who is a resident of the town and wishes to speak can also speak. And after we hear a few speakers, usually from up front here, I start to look around, and I think I'm pretty good at spotting people and knowing, particularly tonight, the lights are excellent. So I'll know and I'll see you, and just bear with me. If you feel that you're being ignored, you can yell out. But in the beginning, if there's a lot of people speaking, give me a chance to get to you. That's all. Before we begin, are there any questions, including from the audience, that we would like? It is possible to amend motions. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Moderator, often when we have related motions, you allow people to speak to any of the related motions as if they were one article together. I'm wondering how you would have us do it tonight.
Yes, for the people that may not have heard that up back, the gentleman brings up an excellent point. Sometimes if you have related matters, that the town meeting is allowed to speak on more than one article at the same time, and that definitely is what we're doing tonight. And the reason for it is this: if the Board of Selectmen stand up here and tell us that we ought to buy this property, and we might want to ask the question, what are you going to do with it? And that's the subject of Article 2. So both of those, we're going to essentially have both of those discussed simultaneously. And then usually when we vote that way, we can vote very quickly once we decide to vote, because we move right into Article 2. So under Article 1 and 2, you can talk about Article 1 or 2. And with that, the first article is to see if the town will authorize the purchase of a parcel of land consisting of approximately 19.2 acres off of 78 Ridge Street for a sum of $13,600,000. And the motion is in your handout, ladies and gentlemen, but I'll read the beginning of it. It's moved and seconded that the Board of Selectmen are authorized to purchase the Hamilton Farm described in approximately 9.2 acres located off 78 Ridge Street, Winchester, Mass., as more fully described in the purchase and sales agreement, etc. That's the first motion to buy. The motion to sell, for those that may not have the handout, has been, and those that may have got the handout early, has been changed with a minor correction, so I'm going to read it in its entirety. And so the Board of Selectmen's first motion is that we buy the property. The second motion is as follows. It's moved and seconded that the Board of Selectmen are authorized to sell all or a portion of the Hamilton Farm property for not less than $7 million. The purchaser to be selected in accordance with the provisions of the Uniform Procurement Act. Said portion includes all options identified in the request for proposals for the proposed disposition of town-owned property at Hamilton Farm issued December 2006. Said sale shall be subject to approval of a subsequent regular or special town meeting vote. That motion, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember the three options that I described: buy it to preserve it forever, buy it and sell it off, and at a various price depending on which bidder you pick. And the third was to buy it and make the decision later This motion is to buy it and make the decision later. The chair now recognizes the maker of those two motions, Mr. Howley. Yes, sir, point of order. Mr. Bottaro. No, I think that, good point. Mr. Bottaro raised, yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Bottaro raises the question that there was something in an earlier handout about the 7-day rule. There is a rule in town meeting. I haven't got it right handy here, but it was turned down by the Attorney General, as I recall. So it's in two parts. But essentially it says that a report is due from the selectmen, I think it's 7 days before the town meeting. And that report, I believe, was sent. There was significant additional information provided tonight that was not in that report, but I would say that that is not going to hold us up tonight, except that people may want more time to digest it. And if I could, ladies and gentlemen, people in the audience, when you speak without the mic, if you will raise your hand, I have two very fast gentlemen down front here who will run up, just hold, and they'll get to you with a microphone. And anybody up back, the same thing. So, Mr. Howley. Mr. Howley, you have 10 minutes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, thank you very much. Boards and commission, town meeting members. Because of the very limited amount of time available for this presentation, I'm going to make a number of assumptions. I'm going to assume that you know of the historic significance and the beauty of Hamilton Farm, that you understand that the town holds the right of first refusal on this property that was triggered by the proposed sale to Avalon Bay, and that you've been able to attend perhaps one or more of the 7 public information sessions on Hamilton Farm that have been held starting in early September. Or perhaps you visited the town website on which the request for proposal issued by the town, all of the proposals submitted by the developers, and the reports of our consultants and what we have been calling our stakeholder boards and commissions, that is the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, the Historic Commission, and the Housing Partnership. All of those reports have been posted there as we have gone along throughout the fall. And I know that you've probably had a chance to read the letter that the moderator was referring to that went out about 10 days ago, which attempted to provide you with information sort of on the status of this issue, where we've been, where we think we're going, and also the updated material, which was not, we were not able to send out until this past Friday, which built upon that earlier letter. So in the time available, I'm going to focus on the 5 shortlisted proposals. And if you authorize the acquisition of the farm under Article 1 and the sale of the farm under Article 2 for not less than $7 million, we will continue to negotiate with those 5 remaining developers so that we can improve upon those proposals, because we think we can. And subject to the voters' approval on March 13th, we will exercise the town's right of first refusal on the 14th, one day prior to the date the moderator referred to as being the day by which we must exercise that option. And so I'm going to attempt to quickly summarize, and I will do my best to do this. It's a little hard for me to decide how much information to provide, quite frankly. There's been so much, but I'll do the best I can, and try to cover only those essential elements of each proposal, as well as the comments made by our site planning, financial, and traffic consultants. I also will attempt to, in a very, very summary way, state the assessment of these projects by the Historic Commission, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and the Housing Partnership. The Finance Committee, as was referred to, will then later address the fiscal impact. I will not do that, the fiscal impact of the 5 remaining proposals. And it's my hope that all of this information that you will receive will help you have a better feel for each of these proposals, and perhaps will prepare you for whatever discussion might take place with regards to the options that are in front of us. So, first couple slides, just to sort of generally orient you towards the farm. And then sort of where we started with this. As you know, there was a proposal or an agreement that was entered into between the current owners and Avalon Bay to sell the property to them. we were informed of Avalon Bay's intention to develop 260 units of rental housing, and that was confirmed in a filing that was a required filing that was made with the state this past fall. I don't know how well you can make that out, but generally the entire green area is the farm. The white area that is sort of off to the right, which is sort of left untouched, if you will, are the historic buildings. And as you can just get a general feeling for sort of the use of the property in order to accommodate the 260 units of rental housing. That then sort of triggered a number of discussions that have taken place, and then the decision by the Board of Selectmen to issue a request for proposals. We really weren't sure what we would get, but we thought that it was important to sort of test the waters, anticipating this very meeting, so that we could come to you and say, this is the interest that we think is out there. It is either real and substantial or it's not. In order to orient ourselves a little bit further with regards to the request for proposal, there were basically two options that were put out there. And this was a request for basically a limited development of the farm. The first one, option one, as you can see, the sort of checkmarked areas at the edges of the property. This is a more limited development option that we provided to any interested bidders. You can see that it leaves essentially the farm area, the historic buildings, the sort of back through the pond area in the center of the property, and then the area in back, which is really a wooded sort of hilltop, all open. There was then a more extensive development option that we made available to people, and this sort of provided more development space and retained less open space. You'll see the little triangle called B1. That was sort of an optional piece of property that could either be developed or not, although the RFP indicated that it would be regarded as highly advantageous if it were not. The reason is that that has particular significance, particularly to the Historic Commission, as part of the sort of historic landscape. We were fortunate. We received 9 proposals under our RFP. And after meeting with our consultants, after talking with the stakeholder boards and commissions, after additional public input, the Board of Selectmen decided to limit that 9 down to 5. And in alphabetical order, the proposals that remained are by Abbott, by Highland, Maggiore, Taurus, and the Trust for Public Lands. It is actually sort of a convenient order, not just alphabetically, but also conceptually, in order for you to understand the range of proposals. On the one end, we have the Abbott proposal, and I'm going to sort of flip through these and then come back to them. We have the Abbott proposal.
Tom, if I could just for a second. Up in the booth, if the booth up above, would you try to lower the lights? Some people are having a little difficulty seeing the screen. Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay.
Sorry.
On one end of these sort of 5, if you will, we have the Abbott proposal. This development envelope, as you can see, is concentrated to the lower left-hand corner of the property. This is the edge of the property that's hard up against Edward Drive. It actually leaves the most amount of land still available for preservation, even more than the Trust for Public Land proposal, which is on the other end, slightly more. But the development itself is very dense and impactful in terms of the 100 condominium units which are to be located in 3, 4, and 4.5 story buildings that you can see grouped down there. So that's on one end of the spectrum, sort of. Then we have 3 proposals out of the 5 remaining, which are really, you might understand them as being low-rise condominium proposals. These have fewer units and have a lower scale and profile, certainly, than the Abbott proposal, but they require the development of far more property. They spread out, as you can see, across what is really the hill in the back, and then around the edge of the property on the upper side, upper end of that, which is really the High Street extension up there. And there are actually 3 proposals that are very similar. Here's Highland. Here's the Maggiore company's proposal. And here is a little harder to make out, but here's Taurus Investors. But I think by a quick look at it, you can just sort of see, in fact, that they sort of follow kind of the same development pattern, if you will. different than that of Abbott, which is concentrated in one place. And then at the other end of the 5, we have the Trust for Public Lands, which I guess like Abbott uses relatively little land, but unlike Abbott, actually only proposes to develop a very limited number of buildings, and these would be single-family homes, 10 single-family homes. So going back, what I'm going to attempt to do as quickly as I can is give you a little more information about each. Abbott is, as I mentioned, a 100-unit proposal, each of them being 2 bedrooms. These are condominiums. Those 100 units would be located within 3, 4, and 4, or I guess 4.5-story buildings, you might say. The purchase price which they would offer the town for the right to develop this and buy the property from us is $13.5 million. It's the highest bid price of all 5. The units are 1,600 square feet. The sale price is anticipated to be about $650,000. There is a considerable affordable housing component to this proposal, $2 million in cash. This represents about 10% of the total, which is actually double really what the RFP called for at 5%. Our consultants estimate that this proposal would generate about 450 vehicle trips a day out of the project. And the access is a very important issue, would be limited to Edward Drive. Although it is important to notice that the proposal, the developer has suggested that they would prefer to run a road out towards Ridge Street across the farmland, out this way, so that they're not limited simply to Edwards Drive. And you will see that same notion come again in the low...
Mr. Howley, how much time do you need, sir?
I haven't gotten very far. I would say 20 minutes, and I'll try to do it less.
20 minutes?
Yeah.
All those in favor of break? No. All those in favor of an extension for 20 minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr.
Thank you
Howley.
very much. I was sweating that for a minute. Okay, so here's what our consultants had to say. They said that the concentrated development takes the least amount of land of all the proposals. It does not impact the farm. It avoids the wetlands. It leaves more of the wooded areas available and alone. But it also does not cross either the farm fields heading out along Ridge Street, or there is a sort of natural area that goes, would leave from the farm along this way and would join up with adjacent conservation land. And that's kind of an important feature to some people. So it leaves all that alone. But the project in its present form, nonetheless, would have a major impact on the immediate neighborhood. It has relatively small setbacks between those relatively large buildings, the 4.5-story buildings, and the neighborhood properties. The buildings are on a higher elevation than the immediate abutters are. And it's estimated that and we didn't really find this out with a little more detail from our consultants until the very last Thursday, I think it was. It was estimated that about half of the hill, which is this area through here, would need to be removed in order to accommodate those buildings. And in fact, the central building in the middle would actually be facing a rock wall of about 25 to 30 feet high behind it. Our stakeholder boards said, the Historic Commission said they far prefer TPL, the Trust for Public Lands proposal, but given the small development envelope, this would be their sort of number 2 pick. The Conservation Commission said pretty much the same thing. They would far prefer Trust for Public Lands, because of the lesser environmental impact, they would pick this number 2. The Housing Partnership placed this number 1. I think they were attracted by the $2 million payment. And also the smaller size of the units at 1,600 square feet. And the Planning Board rated this as highly advantageous together with the TPL proposal. It's a term that comes out of the request for proposal. And they cited the excellent preservation and conservation vision. They said it was most financially advantageous to the town. They noted that it was inconsistent with the adjoining neighborhood. And they also said that they felt if this proposal was built, that it should have a road that runs across the farmland out to Ridge Street. So the next one is Highland. Highland has 62 bedroom condominium units. It is age-oriented, that is, it is really meant to be marketed to people who are 55 and over. It has a purchase price of $8 million, less than the one we just looked at. 2,200 square feet are the units. They're proposed to be sold for $1 million, so they are at the very high end of the market. The developer proposes a $600,000 cash affordable housing payment. Our consultants tell us that this project will generate 350 vehicle trips a day, and the access is, in fact, limited to a new road to be built across the farmland, if you can see it, down through here. So if you follow this all the way back, there's actually really no connection out that way to Ridge or to the High Street extension. Our consultants thought that this, in fact, was the best architectural plan. But like the two proposals we're about to review, the ones that I described as low-rise sort of condominium units, it requires extensive removal of the hilltop. Most of the existing trees and vegetation that are in the back would all be removed. It does cross the stream and kind of interrupts that natural corridor that connects the farmland out to the adjacent conservation land. A couple other comments which were noteworthy, I thought. Highland was thought to be the most conservative budgeted proposal that we received. It had the most dollars for excavation and for landscaping and site improvements. Our consultants described the developers being experienced. In fact, the principals were involved in the ledges development. And originally, the purchase price was to be paid over a period of years. We received a letter from the developer last Thursday, I believe it was, confirming that, in fact, it would be paid 30 days, I believe, after the expiration of all appeals on any permits. So that brings it in line with the other development proposals. The Historic Commission regarded this as unacceptable, given the impact that it would have on the historic properties. Conservation also thought it was unacceptable, really because of the impact that it had on the hilltop and the crossing the stream and the bridge with a bridge and the like, and also the road across the farmland. The Housing Partnership thought the $600,000 payment was a little bit too low, didn't really think we needed more high-end units in town, and the Planning Board listed it as advantageous and so thought it was the best of the proposed low-rise condominium layouts, and that the density was reasonable and consistent, more consistent, I guess, with the neighborhood. The next one is Maggiore, which is a 47-unit, three-bedroom condominium unit proposal. It is not age-oriented. The purchase price is $8 million. The proposed selling price for these units is also high-end at $949,000. The payment would be made on the expiration of all appeals, and this particular developer thinks that that might happen in September, and there's an issue with regards to that I'll come back to in a moment. $600,000 cash affordable housing payment. Our consultants think there'd be 280 vehicle trips coming out of this project. And the access, as you might be able to make out, is from the High Street extension and by a new road across the farm fields. Our consultants thought this was a good site plan, solid but uninspired, they said. And it has many of the same issues that the other low-rise sort of spread out condominium proposals do, which is that it will substantially impact the hill. There'll be a lot of excavation going on up there. And one notable difference here for this proposal, which would have to be worked out in our subsequent negotiations, which is that the proposal states that the zoning must be as of right. That is, I think this developer thinks that zoning will be submitted that would allow this project as of right, and after that point that there would not be further review. And I think that's a very hard thing to promise anyone. And so that would have to be changed. The Historic Commission finds this to be unacceptable, as does the Conservation Commission, for the same reasons in terms of impact that I described before. The Housing Partnership finds this, again, at the high-end price level, not as attractive, and the Planning Board found this not to be advantageous. Very large building footprints and dense sort of development, although they thought reasonable to the neighborhood, and nonetheless not advantageous. The Taurus project 88 condominiums, age-oriented to 55 and over, $9,184,000 payment, more than the last two that we looked at. This is the third of those low-rise condominium projects. This is more than the other two in terms of price. There was less information in this proposal. It was a little hard to read. You can see from even the site plan, it's somewhat rudimentary. And the sale price is thought, we sort of extrapolated it to be about $725 to $775 per unit. Affordable housing was at 5% of the units, and it would be on-site, which is something that's attractive to the housing partnership. 400 vehicles per day coming out of this proposal because of it's more dense at 88 units, and its access would be by both Edwards Drive and Ridge Street. The consultants, as I said, thought the site plan was a little rudimentary. No information really on architecture. Has the lowest of all proposals for site work, and the developer does not seem to have nearly the same amount of residential development experience. One thing that does distinguish this is that the developer proposes to pay the purchase price upon expiration of the 90-day permit period. And 90-day due diligence period. So there is no permitting exception or contingency. And we would need to sort of kick the tires on that a little bit more to make sure that was real. That would be something that we would do if given the opportunity to negotiate some more. The Historic Commission said this was marginally acceptable because I think largely it did not cross the farmlands. Conservation Commission said unacceptable. Housing Partnership liked the 5% on-site affordable housing. And the Planning Board found this not to be advantageous. And the last one is the Trust for Public Lands. This is very different. 10 single-family homes, each having 4 bedrooms. Purchase price that would come back to the town, the money to the town, would be $5 million or $5,150,000, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The homes fall between 3,500 square feet homes that are down by Edward Drive, which is, Edward Drive down here, and then up here by Ridge and High Street Extension, they're slightly larger at 4,000 square feet. There's no affordable housing payment, 100 vehicles per day coming out of this project. The consultants found that although it develops slightly more land than Abbott, that the visual impact and the density and the like would be not as impactful. Good overall site plan. TPL, this is one part I want to emphasize, the Trust for Public Lands describes the source of the $5,125,000 payment as follows. $1 million at closing from private individuals, foundations, and grants. They are in the process of raising that money now, and they'll probably tell you later sort of where they are with that effort. $2.8 million from their developer partner, which is Symes, and that works out to about $280,000 per house lot. $250,000 from the Conservation Commission, and $1 million from the prospective sale of the farm, and that is the house, the historic house and the barns, which would be sold subject to a preservation agreement. The Historic Commission prefers this, as does the Conservation Commission. The Housing Partnership didn't like it much because it had no affordable housing component, and the Planning Board thought this was highly advantageous, together with the Abbott proposal, largely based upon their excellent conservation and historic preservation vision, although they noted the contingent nature of the funding sources, and were a little concerned about that. So that's a summary of the proposals. We believe, the selectmen believe, that each of these can be improved. And we think we can improve them if given the opportunity to sit down and talk with these developers. We ask you to authorize the acquisition of the property to stop the Avalon Bay proposal. We ask that you authorize the subsequent sale of the land for not less than $7 million, subject to your further approval prior to any actual sale of the property. In other words, we would then come back to you and actually propose and make recommendations with regards to a particular developer. By approving Article 2, however, the one which would allow for the sale at not less than $7 million, you will confirm our intention to sell the property for not less than that amount, and thereby limit the carrying cost of the $13.6 million purchase to not more than $6.6 million, which we think is a very important minimal message to get out there. We have accomplished a great deal in a short period of time. We know that there is genuine interest by several qualified, experienced developers to pay amounts of money that will materially reduce the town's ongoing costs. And we believe that whatever shortcomings any of these proposals have, that in fact they are better than the Avalon Bay 40B proposal. So we urge your approval of Articles 1, 2, and 3, and I hope that this information will turn out to be helpful to you tonight in terms of any discussions and deliberations you make. Thank you very much. Thank you for the time you allowed me.
Thank you, Mr. Holly. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Finance Committee, Mr. Linsky.
Passing the baton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow boards and town meeting members. My name is Chris Linsky. I'm the chairman of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee would like to acknowledge the complexity of the Hamilton Farm issue. The size of the parcel, its location within a typical Winchester neighborhood, the cost, and the timeline for the decision all conspired to confuse an already difficult and emotional issue. As the moderator said early, you really have three choices. You can choose to purchase the land, choose to preserve it, or choose to develop it. To cut through the complexity and to get to the core of the issues, the Finance Committee's ad hoc Hamilton Farm Subcommittee spent countless hours eliciting comments and information from Winchester citizens, town employees, town-hired experts, developers, and officials from neighboring cities and towns. They prepared a number of financial models and presentations that were reviewed in detail by the full committee. They presented this information publicly on a number of times and in the process of getting here tonight. The major drivers, or the analysis that the Finance Committee looked at, and what you should have picked up on your way in here this evening, was we looked at the revenues, both the recurring property taxes and excise taxes from the developments, as well as one-time permitting fees. For costs, we looked at the additional number of school children that would be as a result of these developments. Because there was a lot of debate about the number of children, the Finance Committee has produced both a low and a high model to accommodate the difference in the number of children estimated. The Finance Committee and the Hamilton Farm Subcommittee talked to the police and fire departments to identify what additional services these developments, the size of the structures, and the number of people would require from the town. We also looked at the capital which would be required to service such large structures. As a result, the analysis on some of the developments requires portable classrooms to accommodate large numbers of additional students, as well as large ladder truck to service large structures from the West Side Fire Station. There would also be the cost to put the firemen in that station and additional police patrols depending on the size of those developments. The Finance Committee used a lot of the analysis that was provided by the town's consultant, Judy Barrett. It also looked to see where it differed from Judy's analysis, and I'd like to at this point thank other people in the town that helped with this analysis, like Roger Haynes, so that we were sure that we were always trying to understand both what was the consultant's point of view and what was Winchester's point of view, and where were the incremental costs that we should consider. The handout that you should have received includes an analysis that describes the net impact on the town in a stabilization year. That's something you should consider in terms of what will happen to the town's finances as a result of this development when it is up, fully populated, and using the town's services. What is the impact on the town? We also have presented to you the net present value for each project. So what is the impact over 20 years at a rate of 5%? So what will happen as a result of this project? And finally, we tried to include a net per average household impact so that if you assumed a $755,000 average value of a house, what the impact is for each taxpayer. The Finance Committee recommends the town authorize the town to exercise its right to first refusal and buy the Hamilton Farm. We base this recommendation based on the fact that the Avalon 40B proposal would have a detrimental effect because of the 260 units on the town's financial health. Proposals received by the town suggest that we have options. Some of these have a less negative effect on the town's financial health, and others actually suggest that it could be a positive financial boost for the town. We ask you to look at that handout. Thank you.
Is that the completion of the presentation? Is that the completion? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Ladies, yes, sir. Mr. Conti, do you have a question? Oh, sir, certainly. Come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow town meeting members. I must say I was a little surprised that we didn't get a recommendation from the Finance Committee as to their thoughts on the matter, but I'm going to surprise some people and say that I'm not unalterably opposed to what is being proposed by the selectmen. However, I think we've got to recognize that there are a lot of risks involved. Everybody has talked about, the pluses and minuses of the various proposals, but nobody has mentioned the fact that every one of these proposals requires a zoning change. And I'd like to remind folks about what happened a few years ago when we had another situation somewhat similar to this, namely the Winning Farm proposal, where we were told, let's buy this land, stop it from being inappropriately developed, and we'll get a good development in there and win back the money. And the town went forward, bought did the work, and now we find that the property's been tied up in litigation all these many years, and we're still paying. Whenever there's a rezoning, you run the risk of there being litigation arising from people who aren't happy with the prospect of some development in their backyard. Nobody wants anything in their backyard. It's all got to be, preserved the way it was when they bought their property, and there should never be any changes. Well, life is not like that. We've got to be realistic. I know that I attended a session where some people were proposing preserving this property, and there are a lot of romantic illusions out there that the town can preserve this property, and what a wonderful place it is, and it's there for our kids, etc. However, let's be realistic, folks. The town can't afford to maintain the property that we own right now without picking up another expensive proposition to maintain. I know that there are a lot of people who think that the TPL proposal is a wonderful proposal, yet I don't know why it's even on the list that the selectmen have given to us, in that they set a minimum price of $7 million, yet this proposal from TPL only proposes a $5 million purchase price, of which $250,000 comes from the Town Conservation Commission. And they're asking us to help finance their bid. This is frankly beyond the pale. I know that the selectmen say we're going to negotiate and make it better, but I don't know how it made the first cut in the first place. But I know there are a lot of people who would love to see this proposal, because it doesn't change anything, gives single-family houses. But look at this. I hope people are going to look at what the Finance Committee gave us that shows that this would be the worst financial option for the town, and that it ends up with a substantial negative financial impact. Let's all remember, there are risks involved here. I'm not saying that we should take it out of consideration, but we're faced with a difficult decision here, and people, I don't want to, 5 years from now, when full financial impact be addressed, that people didn't say that we didn't consider those financial impacts, and that the town, by my lights, I mean, the only proposal here that is at all realistic is the first one, the Abbott proposal, that would have a very positive financial benefit for the town. We shouldn't even be considering any proposal which is going to have a negative financial impact upon the town, which most of these proposals that we've just been outlined would have, to one degree or another, a negative financial impact. So in any case, I hope that we give this serious consideration and look for some assurances that we have of receiving the amount of funding that is being proposed, or excuse me, that the sale price and the other financial benefits that these proposals might bring to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question? Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Hewens. Susan. Mrs. Hewens.
I appreciate your calling on me, Mr. Moderator. I'm Susan Humans. I'm a member of the Winchester Hamilton Farm Interest Group, and I'm one of 3 producers of the video Winchester's Hamilton Farm. I talked to the moderator about this. I feel that the video expresses my opinion and the opinion of those I represent, as well as many other Winchester residents. And rather than taking your time with my words, I would like to give up my minutes and show you this instead. The video runs 8 minutes. Is that okay, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, with the patience of the town meeting, usually it'd be 5 minutes and an extension for 3. I've seen the tape and it is 8 minutes, and so you can feel free to run it, and you can sit right down front and watch it if you like. You ready to go?
Thank you.
Okay. We're a multimedia meeting tonight.
While they're fixing it, we're not only a multimedia meeting, but this is available on YouTube.
Can you turn the lights down up back there, please?
The Red Rock Hamilton Farm is just an incredible historic property. It's remarkable that it survived as long as it has, as close to Boston as it is.
What's really significant about Hamilton Farm and its relation to this broader expanse of woodland is it's the only place in Winchester where you have a grassland area with special ecosystems right next to woodlands. And this is so important because there's no other place in Winchester or even nearby that's quite like that. I know that when I walk out in the wood, The Red Rock Hamilton Farm is just
an incredible historic property. It's remarkable that it survived. The Right Lock Hamilton Farm is The Right Lock Hamilton Farm is just an incredible historic property. It's remarkable that it survived as long as it has, as close to Boston as it is.
What's really significant about Hamilton Farm and its relation to this broader expanse of woodland is it's the only place in Winchester where you have a grassland area with special ecosystems right next to woodlands. And this is so important because there's no other place in Winchester or even nearby that's quite like that. I know that when I walk out in the woods or when I walk out outside, it satisfies something. It's a very spiritual thing for me personally, and I think that kids and others can relate to that when you take them outside.
When I take children on nature walks, one of the things I like to try to do is to get them to appreciate, respect, and also have great awe and wonder for what they're seeing.
I'll always start off by asking the question of how would you like to live where it's always cold, dark, and wet? And of course, most of the kids will say, I wouldn't like to live there. A couple of boys will say, oh yeah, that would be neat. That sounds like a lot of fun.
The whole farm is a kind of outdoor classroom. I know when I take my kids on a hike in the woods, or they're doing a hands-on class at Habitat or Drumlin Farm, they immediately start asking their own questions.
When my kids were small, we always made a point to take them to places where there were animals, gardens, anything to do with plant life, that sort of thing, and they always enjoyed it.
Walking, being able to hike, just like I do, my family does, from Lexington overlooking Lock Hamilton Farm.
I remember the stream coming down from the farm, which would be icy in the winter and which we'd have to walk over carefully.
I would like more people to enjoy the rich feeling that I get being able to walk down the street, take my kids into that raspberry patch, and just... I can't, it's like heaven.
The whole town should have the opportunity to have land like that as closely available as possible so that people really enjoy it.
It's such a unique bit of land to have within 128, and we just need to keep it, and we need to respect the earth.
Acton has done something like that. Wilmington, even Burlington is saving open land. So it's not just us, it's everybody. It's in the neighborhood of 40 to maybe 50 acres a day of land, and it's lost in Massachusetts to development.
The land has been farmed since the 1600s. It's only been owned by 3 families since the 1600s. Most of the buildings date from the 1820s to 1915. It's still a working farm today.
We're talking about 206 years of history on that property, if not longer. We're talking about 150 years prior to that also, because we now know that there probably was some sort of a building on that property as early as the 1650s. And it's been farmland ever since.
The importance of the Wright family to the founding of the capital region of Canada is so significant that the Canadian government actually erected a very large bronze plaque on the site in 1980 that commemorates Philemon Wright, the last Wright to own the farm before it was sold to the Locks, who in the winter of 1799 to 1800, he set out from that farm in winter sleigh with 63 settlers, and they founded what's now the capital region of Canada, Ottawa.
You can go to that property and you can look and you can feel what it was like originally. You can look at the buildings and you can understand. You can go in and look at the fact that 1827 is actually carved into the beams.
It's a living museum. With so much history here, the town could use the farm as a venue for educational classes, musical performances, or even weddings.
We could even create a community farm, just like they've done at Waltham Fields Community Farm.
We do. We have quite a few home gardeners who come and visit the farm. They don't have a lot of resources to go to in this area anymore. It's fun. We can compare varieties. We can talk to them about what we're growing and what works well for us. When they have an investment in their food and an investment in their land, their experience of eating is so much richer. It's not fast food. This is the ultimate in slow food. This is seeing food from a seed to your plate.
The more I think about community farms here, where there's lots of people, is boy, how much easier for all those different age groups to come and be helpful and to be part of the farm. If you have the farms right here in town, then you don't have to drive miles.
It's neat to meet other people who kind of share some of your values and care about where their food comes from. So you have that kind of social basis.
You know, if they make it a community farm where people might be able to, do some planting of their own, I'd be interested in going up there and taking advantage of it.
It's unique in our hurried lives to find a place like that.
As we become to understand it, we're gonna come to love it, and as we come to love it, we're gonna want to protect it.
We can't live without the land, but we are the keepers of the land. We are the stewards.
It's really the last remaining large piece of land in the entire town. So it would just be an enormous loss, not just for Winchester, but really for the whole state and really for the country. It's a property of national and even international significance.
So to see something like that disappear would just kill me, because you can't reproduce it. It won't come back. It's gone forever.
We need some place where we can go and relax and let our hair down and just enjoy all of this beauty around us.
It's one of Winchester's hidden treasures, and the farm doesn't have to be that hidden anymore, and it's a big treasure.
Behold this enchanting place that's such a rare gem, and you can walk right on there and enjoy it.
I hope you'll take a look at it. If you go to the website of whfig.org, there's information to get to the YouTube place to look at it. So enjoy the pictures and see who all worked on it. And good luck to all of you in taking the next step in preserving that wonderful place that you didn't see right now. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Yes, sir, way up back. We get a microphone, sir? Up back. Thank you. Yeah, it's always the way. Not on. 2.
Thank you. John Natale, Precinct 2. Although they were not explicitly mentioned, we're really looking at four overrides here tonight by my count. Besides Hamilton Farm, there's a municipal override, there's a Cummings School override, and there's a CPA. I'm rather disappointed that all the cards are not on the table. It seems to me sort of like a divide and conquer strategy. I did have several concerns about what I've heard here tonight and questions, and they are, if we buy this farm for $13 million, $13.6 million, and don't sell it for a year, that's a year's worth of carrying charges, around $1 million, I think, and nobody has mentioned that. If we buy it for $13.6 million and sell it to the Trust for Public Land for $5.1 million, That leaves us with a debt of about $8.6 million. Why is that a good deal for us? We're left with an $8.6 million debt. And why, as Mr. Conti mentioned, is the Trust for Public Land even on the bidders list? If the minimum bid we're going to accept is $7 million and they're in at $5 million, I don't get the arithmetic there. And you keep referring to Avalon Bay as 260 rental units, but I add 153 and 27. That's 180 rental units, not 260. And frankly, I'd like to know why Avalon Bay, at full price, $13.3 million, is stricken from the list. I went to one of these information sessions, and by the way, I think the selectman really has done an outstanding job in informing the public on all of this. Nonetheless, I thought that it was more of an infomercial. The numbers were positively stacked against Avalon Bay. Someone talked about 65% of the kids would be special ed. When it's only 8% statewide, how come the kids from Avalon Bay would be at 65% of them would need English and special education? And one of the slides mentioned wear and tear on the sidewalks. Wear and tear on sidewalks. That's positively an exaggeration. So those are three concerns. What about the carrying cost for $13.3 million? Why is the Trust for Public Land even in the bidding if it's going to cost us $8.1 million? And why has Avalon Bay been stricken from the list? They seem to have the smallest impact of all of them.
Okay, the first question is with respect to what are the carrying costs, as I understood the question, on $13.5 million. I think you stated it correctly. If I recall, the carrying costs are $1.1 million, $1.2 million per year. So if we were to buy the property, for example, and just pay off the bonds over 20 years, it would cost us $1.2 million every year. Or if we delayed selling it, for example, for 2 years, it would be 2 times that. So you are correct.
There might be an explanation in the first 2 years, which would be
Right. The gentleman points out that the town for 2 years can borrow at a lower cost, which might bring that down for 2 years by doing bond anticipation notes. But you are correct. The carrying costs are in the range that you talked about. And the other question was, Avalon Bay's proposal has been referred to several times here this evening as 260 units, and you point out that as far as you're concerned in the handouts, it was, I believe you said 153 units plus 27 for a total of 180 units. And I believe that, and one of the members of the board can answer that, but I think Avalon put in an amendment to, not an amendment, they put in a proposal against the town's RFP, and the proposal they put in was not for 260, it was for 180. That's correct.
And finally, what about the $5.1 million bid of the Trust for Public Land? Doesn't that cost us aren't we left with a debt of $8.6 million if we buy it for 13.6 and sell it to them for 5.1?
Yes, if you turn to, because this, and I apologize that this has not been on the table a lot earlier than this evening, because it has not been explained this evening either, and probably nobody has had a chance to read it. But if you look at this high and low bid package, and you turn to page 2 of 2, which is the low estimate of school children, you can see in there what the Finance Committee has done here is they have shown that if you start on the left with Abbott, you see that if you sell to Abbott under the conditions given, at the value of the money that the town gets in excess of paying, after paying off the $13.5 million, is $7.8 million. So the town has a value of 7.8. For Highland Real Estate, it's 3.1. For Missouri, it's $976,000. For Taurus, this is on page 1-2, it's $3,592,000. All of those are in the positive, and in the negative, the number for the Trust for Public Land is minus $7,800,000. And the reason that it's not the $8 million that you quoted is because this property gets credit in the Finance Committee's evaluation for approximately $120,000 worth of real estate taxes on those 10 parcels of property over the years, which is worth, according to the sheet, is worth probably $1,800,000 over the life of the plan. So I think the handout is correct, but you are correct in saying that you haven't seen a presentation of those. And in answer to your question, I believe that the Finance Committee has done an evaluation of the Avalon bid, and that evaluation, they maybe could share that with us now. This would be, he's asking for the evaluation of the Avalon bid with 180 units. That would be the so-called Avalon 2 in your original handout. So if you're looking at the sheet here, that we were, page 2 of 2 in the so-called low estimate, maybe, Chris, you could just share the comparative number for Avalon.
Sure. For Avalon Bay 2, the developer's offer was, or proposal rather, was for 180 units. They proposed $13.5 million. They would develop 13.2 acres of the property. There was a there was an estimate that we had done which showed that the annual deficit generated by this proposal would be about $130,000, and on a net present value calculation over the 20 years, it would actually lose $1.4 million. The drivers in the case of that was, again, the number of units, 180, compared to, for example, TPL, 10 units. The number of school children would be, in the low case, 26, and the there was also an estimate there would be some carrying costs as they worked out the timing of permitting, et cetera. Is that enough information on that proposal?
That's correct. So both Avalon bids, in summary, both Avalon, the original 260 and the 160, have a negative impact on the town, and the negative impact on alternate number 2 was how much present value?
On the low case, it was a negative 1.4. On the high case, it's a negative $4.6
million over the life of the plan. Yes, sir. Could just 1 second. Yep.
Just so everyone's clear, that 1.4 million is comparable to the 7,000,008, because I don't think the 7,000,008 is a net present value number. So I don't think we're comparing apples and apples.
Okay. The gentleman asked the question: is the number comparable to the 7.8, which is the 7.8 is the low estimate for Abbott. That's net present value, the value of to the citizens of town after 20 years. I'm sorry, today, for 20 years going forward. And the comparative number for Avalon is what?
Avalon is 1.4 million.
No.
Those are comparable. Just recall the difference really between the TPL and the other development. TPL is preserving space. What you're getting for that investment is a lot of open space. In the case of the Avalon Bay 2 proposal, they were going to use up a lot of the area that was in the town's proposal, which is the area B1 and B2. So they were going to take up all that space. There was also be issues with the abutters, there would be issues with traffic, et cetera, et cetera. So there's you're kind of doing apples and oranges if you're just thinking that the price for what you get is exactly identical. It's what they would do to the land that has to be considered as well.
Yes, sir. Front row. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Larry Einzig, Precinct 8. I guess through you to the chairman of the planning board, I'm also puzzled by the fact that the price that would be required in Article 2 is $7 million, and yet the TLP proposal, as other speakers have pointed out, is only $5.1 million. So I guess through you to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, why is the TPL proposal among the 5 that you have highlighted tonight?
To the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the gentleman asked the question, if in fact the Board of Selectmen is recommending that the minimum value for the sale be $7 million, why is it that TPL is on the short list?
I think it was the board's feeling that there were many positive attributes about the TPL proposal, but one of them was not the amount of money that they were willing to pay the town. So our thought was that we will raise the bar. We feel that there's probably more money in that project that could be made available to the town. We had a little bit of a debate about whether that number should be 7 million. I think 8 million was mentioned, 8.5 million was mentioned. We settled at 7. We thought that at least in the terms of the sale of those house lots, it was not unthinkable to think that rather than $250,000 a house lot, there might be a higher sale price for that. That if in fact the house lots were sold for something more like $450,000 to $500,000 a house lot, you would generate another $1.5 million perhaps out of that project. So I understand why people may wonder why they were on the list. We felt that with all the sort of passion and intention that comes with that proposal for many people, that we would try to keep them in the boat. But if they wanted to stay in the boat, at least as far as we were concerned, they would have to come up with significantly more money.
Yes, sir. Way up back. White shirt. Thanks, sir. Be right with you.
Thank you. Could the board please explain the initial RFP process and whether or not that 7 million figure was a part of that RFP process? It appears that my understanding from chatter around is that there wasn't an actual dollar amount purchase price. So are we putting any of the supporters of TLP at a disadvantage by now putting in a figure of 7 million?
The gentleman points out, asked a question first, that did the original RFP specify a limit or any price? And 2, if we were to change it now, are we being fair to all the bidders? Is that correct? Yes, sir.
Well, I would defer to town council as to whether we are being not only fair, but I guess really more to the point legal in doing that. I believe we are. I think we are, in some sense, maybe being hard on all of the bidders. At least that's our intention. It's not simply to single out TPL. TPL, if the criteria for us, and it's a very significant one for the board, is to realize an appropriate amount of money in terms of the sale of this property, so therefore reduce the ongoing carrying costs of the town. If that is a significant criteria to us, we felt that at this first cut, it was appropriate for us, now that we saw the range of bids that came in from, I think, around $4.5 million, the TPL proposal a little over $5 million, several kind of in the $8 million category, one around 10, 13.5 million. We really felt that we had confirmation that there was real, genuine interest in this property, and that perhaps by going back and negotiating with these developers further, that we would be able to improve upon their proposal and nonetheless have some degree of confidence that the amount of money that the town would receive would still remain attractive. And so I don't really think we were being unfair to TPL. I think another way of asking your question is, how much does the town value open space? And this is a subject that everybody has to ask and sort of answer for themselves. We're 5 people who try to take in, sort of a lot of consideration to many different issues that the towns face, and we tried to strike some balance, if we could, between all of those interests. And we felt $7 million was as good a number as any.
On a follow-up, sir.
We didn't think of it.
Mr. Park?
And frankly, we didn't know what kind of response we'd get. When we initially thought to do the RFP, we hoped it would bring clarity. But the clarity it might have brought was to confirm that there was no interest at all, or that there was interest at $2 million or $5 million. Turns out that there was interest. A lot of interest seems to be sort of in the 8 to 10 to, sort of in that range. So we just didn't know at the time it was issued.
Mr. Parkhurst was next. Mr. Parkhurst.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, town meeting members. Many of you know me as a town meeting member from Precinct 5. I also live at number 50 Edward Drive, very close to this property, and I serve on the Conservation Commission. But it seems to me that the debate is getting a little bit off the track here. I mean, we're getting bogged down with present value analysis and the details of the proposal and how much money that the town would get back. And I ask you to look at the historical perspective of what we have an opportunity to do here tonight, as I think the moderator said in his opening remarks. And to give you the benefit of a little history, I believe it was in 1868 that the town purchased the Winchester Common. That was the first public acquisition, to my knowledge, that the town ever had. Around 1900, the town had the opportunity to purchase the properties along the Aberjona River, where Manchester Field and other properties now stand. In 1941, we purchased the 20-plus acre town forest, and now several decades later, we have the opportunity to do something significant here at Hamilton Farm. But unlike the other open space options, in this case, we do have the opportunity to control the development. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the important point here, that we acquire this property to get it out from under Avalon Farm and the 260 units and the horrible negative effect that this would have on so many aspects of the community. The details of how this development would occur after we acquire the property is not our primary concern here. I think we could all express our views. I personally would favor the trustee for public lands proposal for any number of reasons, as some others may support Abbott and the others. But number one, we need to acquire the property so that we have this choice to decide what kind of development we want. I think in the case of the trustees for public lands, the question was raised, why did they make the cut at $5 million and the selectmen have subsequently set a bar at $7 million? I don't think there's anything to say the trustees of public land, and I know a little bit about it, couldn't come up with the minimum of $7 million if that's what it takes for that proposal to go forward. So number one, let's buy it. Let's pass Article 1. That's the important one. And let's pass Article 2 so the selectmen have the opportunity to negotiate with these people, maybe any of them, maybe all of them, maybe one or two of them, maybe some others that haven't even been involved in the process yet. But if we don't take the action tonight, we lose our historical opportunity, which we will never have again, and we'll be sitting here looking at 60 or 80 school children where we don't have room to house. We'll have 260 units in our hands, and I could go on from there. So let's not get bogged down in the details of the proposals. Let's not get bogged down in the present value analysis, whatever it may tell us, but let's buy the farm and figure out, after we have a little time, of which we haven't got too much, exactly what we are going to do with this piece of property. Thank you.
Way up back. Way up back. Way up back, sir.
Quick question. Point of process, if we go ahead and In the article, it says the selectmen get to sell the property. Does it come back to town meeting which proposal is going to get sold or selected? So how is that whole process going to work?
All right, if in fact the motion as currently drafted in motion 2 really is an indication by the board what they plan to do, it's not binding on them because they have to come back. So in order for them, let's say the override passes, the Board of Selectmen would have to, in order for them to sell the property to anybody for any price, will have to bring it back to this town meeting and have the town meeting vote by 2/3 vote to sell it, whether it be to Abbott, to TPL, or to whoever. Okay? All right, sir? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Take your time, take your time. We got all night.
I'm Ginny Reeder. I live in Mayflower Road, Precinct 5. I've been taking notes on some of the comments that have been made tonight. One is that there's obviously real genuine interest in this property. It's clear that if the town decides we want to find a developer to develop it, there are lots and lots of people that are interested in taking us up on that opportunity. What I don't understand, and I guess what I would encourage the town meeting members to consider, is giving us the chance first to save it. I think that for 2 years at what, $90 or $100 or I don't know, $154 per taxpayer, why can't we allow the Winchester group, whatever, the Hamilton Farm group and others to try to do a capital campaign and try to figure out ways to raise money to actually save the whole property. It's like we have the opportunity to have the equivalent of the Habitat in Winchester. I think that's an incredible value. I think it will be an incredible value to all of us. It will increase it just brings an intrinsic value to the entire community. And I think that if they don't have an opportunity to do it, if 2 years from now, let's go back and we'll go back to these developers and we'll say, we can't do it, we can't afford it, put together a proposal and put it out, submit an RFP at that point. I don't like any of these RFPs. I don't particularly like the Trust for Public Lands. I don't think we need $4 million, 4,000 square foot mansions. And I know all of us are attracted to it because it has the least amount of development, but I guess I just feel like we should give ourselves, the community, an opportunity to support the property itself. I get letters all the time from my alma mater asking me to raise money. They have a capital campaign. They don't say they have a capital campaign, you have to raise $13 million in 6 months. They say we have a capital campaign, and over the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to try to raise X millions of dollars. Why don't we allow the citizens of Winchester the opportunity to do the exact same thing? So I guess I would, and I guess I also have one other question, which is if we were to vote for Article 2, the way it seems to me, if we vote in favor of it, we're saying immediately if Trust for Public Land doesn't raise enough money, they're out of the picture. I guess I'd be inclined to say, what happens if we don't approve Article 2? Would that just mean that the RFP process has to start again? We're not authorizing them to sell the property. We have more time. Wouldn't that be the way to sort of slow down the process?
Okay, the question, as I understand this, what would happen if we voted 2/3 vote to buy the property and then to follow your line of reasoning to keep it for a while, and we vote against motion 2 so that there is no agreement, at least by the town meeting, to sell the property, then that would mean we would own the property, and that it would be ours, just like a park or some other land. It would be not restricted from use in the future by a subsequent Board of Selectmen or a subsequent town meeting, and you could proceed, no question about it.
Then I encourage everybody to vote yes on 1 and no on 2. Thank you.
Mr. Friesel. Mr. Friesel, you may remember, is a former chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And a wonderful one he was.
I knew you'd say that eventually, John. Just need a little time before you could come to that conclusion. Town meeting members and Mr. Moderator, I rise here to oppose the comments that were made by the prior speaker. I think it's a dangerous path to go down. I support wholeheartedly the comments of Stephen Parkhurst earlier that we ought to get on with this. Let's keep the big picture in mind. Number one, it's important for us to control this process, so it's important we vote Article 1, that we acquire this property, we exercise the option, we take it out of the hands of a developer who doesn't have the interest of Winchester, but the interest of the developer at the developer's own heart. So we've got to do that. It's important, however, if we're going to succeed with that we get the consent of the voters to an override. We all know how difficult overrides are in this community. I think it would be really dangerous to go forward on an override where we don't have the commitment on the part of the town to at least raise 50% or a little more than 50% of the total price for this property from the development of the property. But to go to the voters on March 13th and have no definite commitment that we're going to have at least 50% of this from the sale of the property is very dangerous. We could lose everything. The voters could then say, on that basis, we're not willing to vote for this override. We don't pass the override, it's over. This property goes to the control of a developer and the owners of that property. And that is a more dangerous path to go down. So I believe Article 2 is just as important this evening as Article 1. And I encourage you to vote yes on Article 2, give the Board of Selectmen the authorization to sell this property for not less than $7 million. They're going to come back to this town meeting. They're going to get our input on the exact proposal they're going to put forward for us when we sell this property for $7 million or more dollars. It gives a group of competing developers opportunities in the next few months to improve their bids, including the Trust for Public Lands. So we have a variety of ways in which we could develop it. But I encourage all of us this evening in our votes to keep in mind that this is not the final vote. This is not the most important vote. The most important vote is March 13th. If we don't get the money from the voters of Winchester by that override, that debt exclusion, it's over. This property is not going to be available for anyone to develop but Avalon Bay, and the profit will go to the owners of the property. So I encourage you to say yes to Article 1 and say yes to Article 2. Thank you.
Way up back, I see a hand. Yes, sir. Come on down. Oh. Mr. Driscoll, I think it is, right?
Yes. Moderator.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I speak to you tonight as a resident of the town of Winchester and a occupant on High Street and a part of the Hamilton Farm property. I am going to read you a brief letter that was endorsed by 114 neighbors and abutters to Hamilton Farm. It was sent to the Planning Board, the Board of Selectmen, and to the Town Manager's Office on January 26, 2007. Attached, please find a list of neighbors and abutters of Hamilton Farm. We're writing to commend the town for its exploration of different options which will guarantee the purchase of this unique property. We recognize the fiscal constraints on the town and applaud the creative efforts to overcome this obstacle. We realize that issues may arise in the request for proposal process that will directly impact the neighbors and abutters. We are willing to work cooperatively with the town to resolve any pertinent issues to arrive at a mutually agreeable solution. As the consultants' studies are showing, it will benefit the town financially to exercise the right of first refusal and purchase this valuable piece of property. As neighbors, we're willing to work with the town to ensure this outcome. We urge you as leaders of the town to continue to work to protect the quality of life that Winchester offers. And this, again, this was dated January 26th. I'm just going to read a little bit of an addition to this. After talking again with some of the abutters and the most recent developments, the group has still supports the town's approach. We recognize the strengths and weaknesses in all of the proposals. We encourage the town to use some time to sit down and negotiate with each developer for a more positive outcome for both the town and the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deering and then Mr. Leland.
Possibly the town council. Just a legal question. The way I understand it, Article 1 would authorize the town to purchase it, and Article 2 would contingent upon the passage of an override. My question is, in Article 2, where we authorize the selectmen to sell it, is that legal because it's based on the contingency of a successful passage of an override?
Mr. Welch.
Mr. Moderator, the answer is yes, simply because the sale would have to come back to this town meeting.
Mr. Leland.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen or possibly the Town Council, looking for further clarification. If Article 2 passes, does that mean that TPL has to up their offer to a minimum of $7 million or they are out? Question number 2, does the Conservation Commission funds town funds or outside funds, and should that count towards that $7 million number? And if TPL doesn't get to the $7 million, are the Board of Selectmen committed to taking an offer higher than $7 million so that something will be done?
Okay, there are 3 questions there. Go ahead, Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The TPL proposal now is 5.1 to assign the town's rights of first refusal. That assignment would have to take place before March 13th. So therefore, what is envisioned by keeping them on the short list is a renewal of the negotiations where they would actually, in conjunction with their partner Sims, purchase the property. So it's a little bit different, and therefore, it's permissible, certainly under the RFP process, to do what the selectmen are proposing to do. Doesn't take them out. That's the first question. What's the second, Mr. Moderator?
Conservation, the cost of conservation funds, whether or not they should be counted as contributions from the bidder, TPL, or whether or not they are, in fact, as somebody suggested, town funds to begin with.
Actually, the conservation funds by statute are managed by the Conservation Commission, and they are perfectly free to do what they will with it. They have actually loaned money to the town in the past in order to acquire the winning farm. So they can do that if they'd like. They can loan money to TPL or give money to TPL.
Okay, and then Mr. Howley wanted to make a note on that same question.
So I just want to be clear about this, and I know this won't please everyone, but it is our intention that to remain in the running, the TPL will need to rise to $7 million. And it's also our intention that the other proposals be improved. They need to be improved as far as we're concerned, and we think that by having a sort of more tightly focused competitive process over the next several weeks, it's truly our hope that we're going to be able to do that and come back to you for your approval in order to sell the property.
Okay, Mr. Gentleman in the red. Yes, sir. Yep. Right there. Yep. And then Mr. Mortensen. And then after Mr. Mortensen, we historically take a break at 9 o'clock, and we will do that for just a 10-minute break and then come back. Yes, sir.
Yes, I want to follow up with what Mr. Friesel said, and I think that is the point. This is a chess game, and in particular, the stakes are high. It's not just about voting this in today, because we do have to have the election. And For me, I am at my tipping point with regards to the taxes that people are
Put the mic up, will you? Yep.
that people are expected to pay. And I haven't heard anything from Avalon Bay. They're not even here tonight. Yet we have a handout with a very nice number of crisp talking points. And I don't believe that the Financial Committee really has assessed it, in the sense that they have said it's negative, but all of these talking points say that they are positive. So we really need to understand what how to deal with these particular talking points, so that when we are voting on the 13th, we know what we're really voting for. So can we please, the particular talking points from the handout that came at the end said that there was going to be...
You can't do the glasses without the mic, yeah.
It's that old age thing. Avalon Bay will build an apartment community, an empty nester targeted condominium community that generates $125,000 to $275,000 in net annual revenue to the town. That's a very strong talking point. That is not what I heard the Financial Committee say. Please make me wrong, but I want to make sure that the voters are very clear when we go on the 13th and vote, that we're not confused. So let us get clear on that. We have another override, and quite frankly, I'm really pissed that this has come up at this particular time, with the other override coming up with regards to the schools. And
Speak into the mic.
all right, I'm pissed.
No, hey, excuse me. Now that'll be the last time.
I apologize.
We have young children watching at home.
But I just think there is a lot at stake tonight, and I just want to make sure when we vote, we're real clear what we have done tonight to vote, and that we do not just have a check, but we go for a checkmate.
Okay, thank you. And your wife's going to kill you when you get home. Yeah. Mr. Mortensen. Yeah, okay, we'll get you an answer.
And Mr. Moderator and town meeting members, I shall try to be brief. I've waited a long time to recall to you that some years ago when we worked on the bylaws, I was given the task of figuring out the water system for the town and how that should work, and how under the old bylaws and the new bylaws. And that was when I learned, if I'm right, that somewhere about 1880, this town decided to build the reservoirs up on the east side of town, in the course of which they decided to go buy land from Stoneham and place the reservoirs in there. It's a rather novel notion to me that Winchester should buy land and be a landowner in Stoneham in order to have a reservoir system, which is now serving us now 140 years later. The point of it is that there are opportunities which come along which require us to take a bold look and a broad approach to seize the moment if we can. The Latin provision, carpe diem, seize the day, is with us. We could not, if we stayed here for 4 nights, debating all of the points, come to a consensus here as to all of these difficult and complex points about the varying offers. I think we can say several things are pretty apparent. One of them is that since this problem or opportunity presented itself, the town boards and officials have taken extraordinary steps to inform us, to give us opportunities to inform ourselves, to receive materials, to follow the course of it as to the degree that our interests and our time permitted. And for that, they should be commended. Secondly, we're going to have to rely upon them to negotiate the best deal they can get in the end. But our job is in the end to make sure that the deal they come back to us with is a good one. But in the meantime, our job is to enable them if we think they have acted responsibly and are continuing to. I say we should vote to buy the property, and I don't need an analysis, as some speakers have suggested, to tell me that the worst fear of a Chapter 40 development by a developer like Avalon Bay is coming home to visit us, where we have no zoning control over them. We should not let that happen if we can avoid it. That's why we have gone to such efforts for 15 years to try to meet the affordable housing standards in this town so that we would not be subject to that threat of a developer coming in, buying property and saying, we'll thumb our nose at the town and go ahead without zoning. I don't think we need to debate a long time tonight to say that whether it's 180 units or 260, that form of density is going to have an impact on our schools, which we are not in a position right now to bear. We all know from listening to the school budgets for the last 2 years that Winchester's student populations have been growing at a rate of 9 or 10% a year, which is extraordinarily unusual in the state. It's the price we pay for having high rankings in the schools. But we are strangling with the cost of the schools, and if we permit this kind of development to go ahead unchecked, shame on us. I think we know enough to say we should stop Avalon Bay. So we should vote for number 1. I think we know enough to think that the selectmen have taken an aggressive position here and can go, having kept everybody well informed, can go and negotiate for us and come back. And then I think we should remember those guys back in 1880 or whenever it was who bought part of Stoneham. And we should say this is an opportunity which has not presented itself, as far as I know, to any of us so long as we've been in the town meeting, to purchase open property of a unique nature like this. And if we don't act to do it, whoever will? And if we don't do it now, no one ever will. We ought to go into this saying the right thing to do is to buy it, to preserve it. And we ought to go to the voters and say, we think that's the right thing to do. We think in the end it will save money for the town by not impacting the schools and the streets and the fire department and new ladder trucks and so forth. I think we should go forward to vote these two and perform our duties as a town meeting to approve the general proposition being put forward, and then go back to the voters and say, this is a good thing. We all support it, and we hope you will on March 13th.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a recess here for 10 minutes, and when we come back, we're going to answer the gentleman's question that you asked a few minutes ago. It's moved and seconded that the meeting be recessed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching our live coverage of the Winchester Special Town Meeting dealing with the questions raised by the proposed sale of Hamilton Farm. Let's take a look at what has happened so far this evening. There are 4 articles on the warrant. The first article deals with authorizing the town to purchase this parcel of land, this 20 some odd acres up in the west side of town. Article 2 authorizes the selectmen to sell all or part of that property if the town acquires it. And Article 3 actually authorizes the selectmen to exercise that option, that first refusal option. All of this, of course, is subject to funding by the town's voters on an override election that will be held on March 13th. So let's take a look at what we have discussed here this evening. The moderator, John Sullivan, opened up with remarks saying that we're dealing with a very narrow window and a very important decision, in his words. The options, there are 3 options in his view. One is to buy and preserve the property as it is, as a farm, historic farm. To buy the property. Number 2, to buy the property and develop all or part of it. And number 3, to buy the property and to decide later what to do with it. Now, to further to that, Article 2 was revised from what was originally proposed in the warrant, and that was to put a motion on that the selectmen would not sell any part of the property for less than $7 million. So any kind of sale of some of the part of the property would have to be for at least $7 million. Well, again, going back to Article 1, it is to authorize the purchase of, in the amount of $13.5 million by the Board of Selectmen. We heard from Tom Howley, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. He said that he would assume that the town meeting members are aware of the historic and visual significance of the Hamilton Farm. He said the selectmen have received, in response to their request for proposals, a short and have narrowed several proposals, I believe it was 9, have narrowed that down to 5 proposals. And of course, the original proposal, not made to the selectmen, but the proposal for the sale was to a company called Avalon Bay to build 260 units on this 20-acre property of rental units, and a lot of under Chapter 40B of the state's Affordable Housing Act. The selectmen put out a request for proposals with 2 options. One of those options was to develop approximately 7.6 acres of the property. And if you were watching, you saw the maps. Most of this would be in the southwest corner and the northern section of it, mostly preserving the historic buildings, the farmland area, and the woodland area that is contiguous to conservation areas in Lexington. Option 2 was to develop approximately 11 acres out of the 20 acres. So in response to those proposals, there were 9 proposals received, 5 of them which the selectmen declared that they met the criteria, sort of their short list, and just in alphabetical order, he recapped them as a proposal from Abbott was to develop 1,600 square foot condos. This proposal developed the least part of the property. It involved a $2 million payment to the town's affordable housing fund, but was a very dense proposal and would remove a lot of the hill on the property. From Highland, there was a proposal for 62 bedroom condos targeted to 55 plus. And you can see on the graphic here that developed a large part of the property, leaving only a small part of the farm and the buildings. Still, this was this was approximately 11 acres out of the 20 acres. The proposal was to purchase this property from the town for $8 million, 2,200 square foot condos, a $600,000 payment to the town's affordable housing fund. The next proposal was from Majori. If we have that, there we go, the Majori companies. That was for 47 units of 3-bedroom condos, also proposing to pay the town $8 million for that property and a $600,000 affordable housing payment to the town. Taurus Investors was the next. Again, there was a comment that this was a fairly basic or fairly rudimentary proposal for 88 condos targeted to 55 and older, a $9 million payment to the town. The difference in this was that 5% of those units were going to be affordable housing units on the site. And the last proposal was from the Trust for Public Land, who has been working with the Hamilton Farm Interest Group on this. This was for 10 single-family homes, large. I believe it was over 5,000 square foot homes. It also involved the least amount of money to the town at this point, about $5.125 million payment to the town. And as was discussed later on, this would have to come up to $7 million to meet the Board of Selectmen's criteria. All right, and there were comments. The selectmen believe that all of those proposals can be improved upon and that they would come back to the town meeting before any decision was made for a final sale. We heard from Chris Linsky, the chairman of the Finance Committee, who said the Finance Committee had looked at the impact on town services. The Finance Committee recommended buying the farm and commented on the detrimental financial impacts of a 40B rental project in that area. Town meeting member Anthony Conti reminded town meeting of the risks. He said that all these proposals require a zoning change, And the town meeting, in his words, said the town meeting members need to be realistic, and in his words, only the Abbott proposal was realistic. Susan Umass from the Hamilton Farm Interest Group introduced an 8-minute video. You actually had the advantage if you were watching here because they had technical difficulties in the hall, and I believe they only, I wasn't down in the hall, but I believe they only had the audio. So if you were watching here, you saw an 8-minute video that was produced by the Hamilton Farm Interest Group and is also, as she said, available on YouTube if you missed it and want to go watch it. That video dealt mostly with the historic aspects of the farm and interviews with local residents on the value of preserving the farm. We heard about the so-called Avalon 2 bid. Avalon Bay Properties came back and in answer to the proposals, reduced somewhat their scale of what they were planning to do with the property from developing almost all 20 acres to about 13.2 acres. We heard from Stephen Parkhurst, who commented on some historical purchases by the town. He said in 1868 the town voted to purchase the area that became the Common. In 1900 some of the area around Manchester Field and the Aberjona River, and in 1941 the so-called town forest. He said, in his words, it was important to retain control of the land, and he urged the town meeting to take action tonight, and this is, in his words, a historical opportunity. Carl Friesel, town meeting member Friesel, said that it is dangerous to go to the voters without a commitment, the commitment referred to in Article 2. He said, if the town does not at least make a commitment to sell at least $7 million worth of the property, it's likely to lose the approval of the voters on March 13th. And that is the most important vote of all, in Carl Friesel's opinion. A town meeting member read a petition of a lot of the neighbors in the area vowing to cooperate with the town. And that's where we stand. There have been no votes at this point. It is a sense that a vote is probably coming very close after they come back from the recess. So we will be back with our coverage of the rest of this town meeting. It will resume in just a few minutes, and we'll have a wrap up at the end of the meeting tonight. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned to us here at WinCam.
Town meeting members, please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please second half of this meeting. Up back, please take your seats. Please take your seats. Thank you. We usually break at 10:30, and we're going to either recess, either get our business done, or we will recess until Thursday if we don't finish by 10:30. Obviously, if we're close, we'll stay. But a lot of people are accustomed to going home at 10:30. And that's what our game plan is. I sense from talking to a lot of people that people feel informed so far and feel anxious to start moving along. So the first thing we'll do before we hear another speaker is we'll ask the Finance Committee to reply to the question concerning you want to ask your question again? Yeah. It's with respect to the Avalon bid, without the words. Yep. Can't hear you. Would you read the thing you wanted to reply?
Avalon Bay will build an apartment community and an empty nested targeted condominium community that generates $125,000 to $275,000 in net annual revenue to the town. That's a strong point. I believe they'll send this letter out to all the town people, and it would be good to know publicly what the Finance Committee thinks about that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I would just say that that handout seems to be commingling the two Avalon Bay development proposals. The 40B proposal didn't have any condominiums, so it's apartments, and the number of units is pretty clear, and we did an analysis on those units. So I would just point out that the other proposal, the lesser units, the 180 units, you would still need to exercise the right of first refusal in order to control that development, because in the proposal that they submitted to the town, and I'll quote you, it says, Avalon Bay reserves the right to pursue the 40B development, however. So you really need to exercise the right to get control, even if you were to agree to use them as a developer to do something differently. And as for whether or not we looked at Avalon Bay, and we're referring to them in 1 and 2 in this, and I appreciate that this is a slide. This is why we didn't try to get into a financial analysis for a large room full of people. But I will assure you that we did the analysis, and both the paid consultant for the town and the Finance Committee's Avalon Bay subcommittee could not come up with those same numbers that are in that flyer. We don't have those same numbers. We have the numbers that they gave us, and we have the information that we use, and the information that we have says that it's an investment. It's a net loser. The revenues won't cover the cost the town will incur, whether you use the high scenario or the low scenario, and this is the low scenario. And it suggests that even the Avalon second proposal is a loser.
Thank you very much, Chris. Would you leave that up, please, for a minute? I think there are several questions about these slides that came up, and let me just show, because I don't think everybody can see the bottom line. Can you see the bottom line there? I didn't think so. Well, let me just, you see the 6 bids, okay? And this is a summary chart of the financial evaluation that was done by the Finance Committee. The bottom line, let's take Abbott, says when you get every year, if you present value all those revenues from that development over 20 years, Abbott will deliver $9,914,000 worth of tax revenue to the town of Winchester. And then it goes down and it shows the cost. It'll cost $3,000,004 in municipal services, schools $215, and it goes down. All told, they will bring in $21,400,000 to the town of Winchester, of which 13.6 would be used to pay the towns who has acquired it, to pay the town back. And so the town will net at the bottom $7,800,000 over the 20 years. So that is a positive cash flow. It may not be the best development. It might be too tall. It might be too short, but it's going to deliver $7 million. Avalon Bays, same analysis, same group of assumptions. If you do the same thing, they have revenue, believe it or not, their revenue is $9.2 million. So it's a big number. And the bottom line is it costs the town $6 million if Avalon, according to this analysis. Avalon Bay 2, which reduces the number of units, is $860,000 in the negative. Highland's bid, if accepted, would give $3 million plus to the town. Majori's bid would be $970,000, and Taurus's bid would be $3.9 million. All those positive, and then, as discussed before, the TPL bid would result in an outflow of $7.8 million. So there's three negatives. On cash only is the two Avalons and the TPL. So, and I think what the Board of Selectmen is saying, we're going to go back to the 4 or 5 people, including TPL, if they up it to 7. They're not committed to going with the low bidder. They're committed to try to bring that down, as I understand their presentation. And they will commit to trying to sell this, and net, by selling it at $7 million, they're going to be shooting to have a positive cash flow, so the out-of-pocket net present value will be at least zero. I think that's what they're trying to do. But the big deal, and the only marker they've used, they're going to shoot for $7 million minimum, and then I believe, and I think they should speak for themselves about what they're committed to, but those are the numbers. Those are the numbers in today's analysis. And the selectmen are saying they're pleasantly surprised by the range of bids, pleasantly surprised by the positive cash flow and the ability to offset some of this 13.5, and pleasantly surprised with all of these non-Avalon bids deliver approximately 10 acres of new conservation land as well. So if you buy Highland, you get $3 million plus 10 acres if you sell it to them for $8 million and change. So that's that analysis. Now, did you want to say something about that, Mr. Holly? Yeah.
I just want to confirm again, I've been trying to do it, is that it is our intention, if you authorize the acquisition and you authorize the sale and you authorize our exercise of our right of first refusal, that what we are going to do is we are going to negotiate with the developers that we have received so far, and we're going to come up with a project that is going to produce at least a $7 million purchase price for the town. It's sort of that straightforward, and we believe that we can do that. We also believe that if we have the opportunity to sit down and negotiate, that we will come back to you with a project that the town can be proud of, that will have less negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood, and that will preserve the open space, much of the open space that all of us care so much about. So that's what we're asking you to authorize tonight, and that's what our intention is.
Thank you. The gentleman up back, yes, sir, with your hand up. Yeah, you.
It's work. I have a question. Suppose on March 13th that the override vote goes down. I know that the 40B thing would kind of exempt Avalon from the zoning requirements, but you know, there are building permits and other hooks and handles that the town might have. And I wonder if this effort fails, what controls that the town would have over Avalon and what Avalon does there.
Mr. Welch, the question is, if in fact Avalon was to build this, or anybody else, under a 40B, what controls does the town have over that project?
Mr. Moderator, if I might, the town has engaged special counsel to deal with these 40B issues. Mark Bobrowski, and is here, and I would yield to him, with your permission, to have him answer that question.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members. My name is Mark Bobrowski. I'm special counsel for the town. 40B would mean that Avalon would come through the process to the Board of Appeals. They would file an application. The Board of Appeals would look at it, and it would address local concerns. Local concerns are traffic, stormwater management, the usual suspects in terms of a development of the size that they've proposed. The presumption in the statute is that the need for the housing with Winchester under 10% outweighs those local concerns. Now, that's not to say that the zoning is out the window. It's not. To the extent that Avalon needs waivers from the zoning, it is only where the project is rendered uneconomic by the imposition of the local standards. They don't get a free ticket. They have to comply with what they can comply with, and if the town can prove that the local standards do not make the project uneconomic, Avalon must meet those standards. That applies to zoning. It applies to subdivision standards to the extent that roadways are proposed. It applies to local Board of Health regulations and local Conservation Commission bylaws. So Avalon is going to have to negotiate point by point with regard to any waiver requests that they might have. At the end of the day, it's very difficult to predict whether or not an application for a 40B would result in a denial or an approval with conditions. There are cases from as close as Waltham where there have been recent denials by boards upheld. I'm personally working with the town of Canton. We just managed to reverse a Housing Appeals Committee opinion as to whether or not the town was over 10%. So don't go into the 40B exercise with Avalon if that's where it's headed, thinking that it's absolutely predictable. It's not. The town has plenty of leverage in the process.
One other thing, Councilor, just from reading the paper, I think also that isn't the 40B developer subject to audit so that you can determine that his profit is limited to 20%, and if in fact it's higher, that money goes to the town?
Well, this is a rental project, so it's not quite the same standard. If it's a for sale project, the developer's total profit is capped at 20% of project development costs. In a rental project, the developer cannot make annually more than 10% on invested equity. It's a slightly different calculation. But there still would be supervision by a monitoring agent, and obviously with the Inspector General concerned about these issues, there would be standards that would have to be followed.
Thank you very much. Very helpful. Ms. Burkhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Ellen Burkhardt from Precinct 3. The last override I voted for was the renovation of the Lincoln School, or maybe it was the renovation of the McCall School. I don't recall which was preceding the other. I am wholeheartedly supporting this override, and I want to just summarize a couple of very brief points so we don't get kind of dragged into a lot of detail that might leave the voters with the sense that we are not united in our view. If you ask the voters to give you close to $14 million, which is what we are doing, there are a couple things that I think are essential. The first one is that you have a plan for how you are going to handle the property that you're going to buy. And I think the selectmen have done a good job of coming up with alternatives and soliciting the marketplace to get those possibilities. I also want to be very clear to everybody about Avalon Bay and what they are doing and what they may try to do. My personal view is they may have underestimated Winchester, and they may have underestimated the political sophistication and knowledge and care that the citizenry of Winchester bring to their events and the actions of the town. They have built a number of these projects in neighboring towns, and they have done so without an enormous amount of opposition. We are a different community. We care immensely. And the reason I suggest that is they sent to all town meeting members a few days ago a letter that purported to say that their 40B application was really just forced upon them by the sellers. And it was just this outside effort that, oh gee, they had to comply with in order to meet the seller's deadline. That, ladies and gentlemen, bearing in mind the vocabulary restrictions, is a lot of malarkey. They then came back with the handout that my colleague has referenced a few speakers ago and said, oh, no, we're going to have this great mixed-use development, and it's going to be wonderful, and we're going to have all this money, and they're going to be condos, not rental units. Don't buy it, guys. Don't be deceived by the fact that they realized, I suspect, that they overplayed their hand on the 40B. They did not, I think, anticipate the strength of the private sector's response to these proposals, nor, I think, did they anticipate the strength of the town's willingness to try to do something constructive here. So with all of that as background, and it is indeed a chess game, let me try to be very succinct. I would urge you to vote yes on Article 1 and on Article 2, because if we go to the voters in a disarray, if there is a perception that there are all kinds of views here, and once again, they're just factions that are feuding, and it's politics as usual, there'll be time for that in the future. We're all really good at that. We can do that in the next few months. But not now, guys, not now. This is the moment to stand united and to say to the town, we need you to vote yes on this debt exclusion. We are pursuing very credible and very serious alternatives to come up with the money to cover a very substantial portion of that. The selectmen, I think, made a wise decision that $7 million is a sensible number, and $7 million is a number you can start to work with. That will be tweaked. As they suggested, the criteria for all of the proposals as they go forward will be tweaked. This is not the forum where we either have to or need to decide which proposal goes forward and what it looks like. There will be many weeks and many months and many meetings and all kinds of public opportunity to do that. But what we must do, and I say this to everyone, of any political persuasion, of whatever the concern is that is at the top of your list, we must go to the voters and say on March 13th, regardless of the weather, regardless of what everyone's calendar looks like, you must vote. Because we only get one bite at this apple. This is the legal peculiarity of this process. Because of the right of first refusal, because of the way that the property was used and taxed in the past, we have one chance, and one chance only, to pass this override. That will give us the legal right to say we have the wherewithal financially to buy the property. We then wave goodbye to Avalon Bay, and we can then determine in a thoughtful and public and constructive process how we wish to proceed. So I urge you to vote yes on 1 and 2 and tell everyone you know that March 13th is, without exaggeration, probably the single most important election in the town for the past 10 years and the next 10. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question, ladies and gentlemen? I sense you were. Mr. Leland, would you be teller? And Mr. Moore, and Mr. Looney, and Mr. Doucette, would you rise? Raise your right hands. You solemnly swear to faithfully perform your duties as tellers of this town meeting, so help you God. Thank you very much. And could I ask the people in the middle to just kind of move one way or the other so you won't get counted twice? Oh, some of you might want it to be counted twice, yeah. Okay, you ready? All those in favor of Article 1, which is for the town to purchase the Hamilton Farm, approximately 19.2 acres, subject to an override for $13,600,000. Please rise, and the tellers will count. 2/3 vote required. $31, sir. $32. 38. I beg your pardon? 50. All those opposed, please rise. Zero. Zero. 1. 0. How do you know? I haven't even reported it. 151 having voted in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, a total of 152 votes, 102 required for passage. The motion passes. Very good. Article 2. It's moved and seconded that the Board of Selectmen are authorized to sell all or a portion of the Hamilton Farm property for not less than $7 million. The purchaser to be selected in accordance with the provisions of the Uniform Procurement Act. Said portion includes all options identified in the request for proposals for the proposed disposition of town-owned property at Hamilton Farm issued December 2006. Said sale shall be subject to approval of a subsequent regular or special town meeting vote. All those in favor, please rise and the tellers will count. $31, 35, 31, 50. All those opposed, please rise. 0, 2, 1, 0. 147 having voted in the affirmative, 3 having voted negative, obviously more than the 2/3 vote, and the motion passes. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we turn now to Article 3. It's moved and seconded that the Board of Selectmen are authorized to exercise the town's right of first refusal to the property known as the Hamilton Farm, or assign said right to a qualified third party in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 61A, Section 14. Majority vote required. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Article 4, the final article, to see if the town will vote to amend the Winchester Code of Bylaws pursuant to the town's acceptance of the CPA Act, Community Preservation Act. It's my understanding this may be indefinitely postponed. Is the speaker there? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even see it. Pardon? You're going to go forward with it, okay? The gentleman, I beg your pardon, is going to go forward with it. So if you turn to your handout, you will see there is a motion, and it's moved and seconded that the town amend the Town of Winchester Code of Bylaws pursuant to the town's acceptance of the Community Preservation Act as specifically... Please be in order. Pursuant, accepting the Community Preservation Act as specifically authorized by Chapter 44B of the Massachusetts General Law by inserting a new Chapter 18, and it reads as is listed in the handout. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator, town boards, fellow town meeting members. My name is Richard Rohan. I come before you tonight as a representative of 113 town voters who have petitioned the special town meeting to pass an amendment to the town bylaws forming a community preservation committee. I'm going to try to be brief given the hour of this. Just by way of background quickly, the Community Preservation Act, referred to as the CPA, it will enable the town, if it is passed by the town voters on March 27th, to establish a fund which will be used, which can be used for the acquisition and restoration of open space, historic resources, and affordable housing. And for those of you who were here in the fall, you remember that this the fall town meeting voted at that time to place the Community Preservation Act onto the March 27th ballot for consideration by the voters. The state law dictates that the funds that are collected from the Community Preservation Act be spent on each of these three categories: 10% for open space, 10% for historic resources, and 10% for affordable housing. The remaining 70% can be used in any combination for any one of those three categories, and also additionally for recreational use. There's complete local control for over the Community Preservation Act. As I said before, it needs to be passed in a townwide election by a majority of the voters. There will be formed a Community Preservation Committee, which will consider the needs of the town for community preservation and make recommendations to town meeting. And it's that committee that we're asking you to form this evening. And finally, projects which are recommended by that committee require a vote of town meeting. Think of the Community Preservation Committee that we're asking you to form tonight as being more or less equivalent in its role to the role that's played by the Capital Planning Committee in administering the stabilization funds. And the community preservation funds themselves acting very similar, in a very similar respect to our stabilization funds, that being an open space, historic, and affordable housing stabilization and restoration fund. Now, to get to the specifics of the committee, state law allows for up to 9 members for this committee. They can be elected or appointed. State law also dictates that these 5 of these members, one of these members be from the Board of Park Commissioners, which currently does not exist in the town of Winchester, and it's allowed that the board that has similar duties, that being the Board of Selectmen, can take the place of the Board of Park Commissioners. It also required a member of the Conservation Commission, the Historic Commission, a member from the Housing Authority, and a member from the Planning Board. So in trying to craft the bylaw for the town of Winchester, we went through a municipal benchmarking process and looked at the communities that are considered to be similar to Winchester and what is the composition of their community preservation committees. Currently, there are 7 out of the 19 municipal benchmarking communities which have adopted the CPA. Those are listed on the left. And additionally, we also considered 11 towns that were benchmarked under the FACTS group a few years back. The great majority of those communities that have CPCs in place have the full 9 members that are allowed by state law. One of those communities that we looked at has only 7 members. In addition to the 5 boards and commissions that committees that I mentioned that are dictated by state law, 2 of these communities also included a member of their housing partnership board on the CPC. One of the communities also placed on the CPC a open space committee member. As to who does the appointing, or whether the board members are appointed or elected, the majority of the communities let those duties fall to the Board of Selectmen. 3 of the communities split those duties between the Board of Selectmen and the town moderator. In one community, the town moderator has the sole appointing authority for the CPC, and in one community, which happens to be a city, all those duties fall to the mayor. So tonight, what we're proposing for Winchester is that we have 4 at-large members, in addition to the 5 members that are dictated by state law, those again being the Board of Selectmen, the Conservation Commission, the Historical Commission, the Housing Authority, and the Planning Board. Of those 4 at-large members, that 2 of those be appointed by the Board of Selectmen, the remaining 2 to be appointed by the moderator, and that they serve for a term of 3 years on a rotating basis. And furthermore, that the members of the boards and committees serve for a term of only 1 year. Now, what is this committee going to do? Most of the duties of the committee are laid out in state law, specifically Chapter 5 of, Section 5 of Chapter 44B. And as I said at the beginning, they'll study the community preservations and the needs of the town, that being historic resources, open space, recreation, and affordable housing. In doing so, they're required to hold at least one public hearing a year, but encouraged to have many more. They're also required by the state law to consult with all of the appropriate boards and commissions, and we've further written into the Winchester bylaw the wording that they also specifically consult with the Capital Planning Board and the Finance Committee and the Housing Partnership Board in arriving at their recommendations. The recommendations will be forwarded to town meeting. All of those recommendations are to include the anticipated costs of the proposals. And furthermore, they can recommend that some of the money be set aside in any given year into an appropriate fund to be spent on larger projects at a later date, or they can recommend the issuance of general obligation bonds, which will be paid out of future CP funds. Under the state statute, the duties of the town meeting are also spelled out, and they are three. A town meeting can either accept the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee, they can reject them in whole, or they can vote to reduce the expenditure of the recommendations. They cannot, however, vote to increase the expenditure of the recommendations from the Community Preservation Committee. Finally, the proposed bylaw would only take effect after such time as the town voters have voted to accept the Community Preservation Act. It's contingent upon that vote passing either on the March 27th ballot or at some future date. We're considering it at this time because we think that it would be appropriate to have the committee formed as quickly as possible after such time as the town voters, if they so choose to vote in the acceptance of the act. We've had some question about that. Why are we having this vote before the town voters have voted on the CPA? And we looked at, we asked around in some of the communities and found out that this is not uncommon occurrence. Many of the towns and cities that have considered the CPA have also voted in the bylaw to form their CPCs prior to the town vote on the CPA. Here's a short list, not exhaustive by any means, but just a short list of some examples of towns that have done so. So in conclusion, I would ask for your favorable action on this bylaw change and form the Community Preservation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Filio. Yes, sure. Mrs. Filio's on the Capital Planning Committee. You can't just drop your title.
Oh, I have to. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I come before you as a town meeting member to move for indefinite postponement in this article.
It's moved and seconded that this article be indefinitely postponed. Mrs. Filio.
My rationale is multifold. First of all, the electorate has not yet accepted the Community Preservation Act. It is essentially an override, a general override, in that each household will be assessed 1.5% of your assessment until it's rescinded. Secondly, my sense is that designating a committee before the town has an opportunity to vote on it is premature. I would like to see at some further point, if this does move forward, the inclusion of a member of the Capital Planning Committee as a permanent member and not in the consulting basis. It is essentially a second capital planning committee, and I can foresee a lot of opportunity for dysfunction in that there'll be duplication, there could be overlap. There needs to be a very strong mechanism developed to set up how this is going to work and how we're not going to run into each other along the way. So I would please ask you to support the motion to indefinitely postpone until we can get a sense from the town of where we're going to go, and then have some time to further refine this whole process. Thank you. Please vote in favor of my motion.
Thank you. Mr. Parker. Pardon? Oh, sure.
Thank you. And my question is, if the committee were approved at this town meeting prior to the vote, and therefore were able to function right away, would that have any effect on the funding for Hamilton Farm?
The question is, if this committee was approved prior to the vote, will this have any impact on the funding for Hamilton Farm? Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to say definitively, absolutely, positively, the answer is no, but that really isn't the answer. So you're going to have to bear with me. I can construct a series of events in which it is theoretically possible, even though the Hamilton Farm, the CPA would not become effective until FY 08, which would be after July 1, 08. And our closing date, as I read the new amended statute of June 12th, would be the closing date 90 days after the right of first refusal exercised under the new statute. But I could conceivably, if some court decided we could apply the old statute, even though we're acting under the new statute, I could back up the closing date to July 26th. So therefore, I could conceivably have a town meeting sometime after July 1st and before July 26th to appropriate these funds. So the answer is highly unlikely, but possible.
Thanks for sharing. Mr. Friesel.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I rise to support Ms. Filio on this motion to postpone indefinitely, with all due respect for those who have made this proposal this evening. And my reasons for doing so are two or three that I think are significant. It's actually I know some other communities apparently have done this, but to me it's the cart before the horse here, and there is no need to do this. My own take on what you just heard from town council, and we all probably have our own take on what we just heard from town council, is that it's really speculative that we could really use this money from the CPA for the Hamilton Farm. I asked that direct question at one of the public information sessions of special counsel for CPA to the town of Winchester, Mr. Tallerman, and he basically said it would really violate the intent of CPA for us to use the CPA money for Hamilton Farm, given the way in which this has evolved with the acquisition, especially our votes this evening, the acquisition of Hamilton Farm preceding the vote of the voters. His view was that it's very likely the intention of the statute would be violated by doing that. So putting those two legal counsel's opinions together, I come out thinking highly, highly unlikely, which is a little more than highly unlikely, what you heard from town council, that it could be used for that purpose. So there's, I believe, no need to rush to form this committee. Third reason is, this is a very significant new committee. And this is a committee that's going to control a very sizable amount of money, and therefore it will have a fair amount of influence and power in the town of Winchester. I think we need to deliberate before we form a committee which could have such influence and control over a significant amount of money. It's different from other committees. You saw on the slide, and apparently it's state law, that this body will not have the control over the expenditures that are recommended by that committee that we have now. We have total control of recommendations from the Finance Committee, the Capital Planning Committee. We will not have that kind of control from the recommendations of this committee, and apparently nothing we can do about that. That is state law. When you adopt the Community Preservation Act, you are adopting that way of doing business. So we will be able to accept, reject, or reduce, but we cannot reallocate. We cannot really have a substantial degree of control over the recommendations that this body is going to make on a significant amount of money. And my last point is we need to be thoughtful. It's late. We've had a very tiring evening. We've had a very complex discussion on a very important matter. And it would seem to me that we need to give this more care. We have not heard from stakeholders, others who are involved in the process and the use of these funds for many, many years in the town of Winchester. We heard from one important stakeholder, the Capital Planning Committee. They're not happy not having a direct seat rather than an indirect influence with respect to the deliberations of that body. I think we should hear from others who are not being appointed to this body, such as the Housing Partnership Board. The Housing Partnership Board has been extremely active for many years on affordable housing. One of the main components of this statute is providing money for affordable housing. They're not on this board. Now, that may be the right answer in the end, but I think we need to take more time and care and deliberate about that before we make that kind of decision. And I think we need to hear from the different stakeholders. We need to give them some time to think this through. And I do think we need to take a closer look at what other communities have done. We've had a slide which shows us some idea of what other communities have done. Personally, I don't find that adequate for us to deliberate thoughtfully in this town meeting, creating a very important committee. So for all of those reasons, I urge you to support the motion for indefinite postponement. Assuming the voters pass this statute, we will have the time to take the care to get this committee right. Thank you.
Okay, we have a gentleman way up back who's been trying to get my attention. And then we'll hear one more gentleman down here, and then we'll take the motion for indefinite postponement, see what happens. Yes, sir.
Matthew Bronsky, Chair of the Historical Commission. Mr. Parkhurst's question regarding could this money be used for Hamilton Farm, I think it has two parts to that question. One is, could it be used for the acquisition of Hamilton Farm? The other part of the question is, if Hamilton Farm were purchased by some means, could this be used to support, maintain, repair buildings, trails, whatever else happened there? I understand Mr. Welch's answer to refer to part one. Could it be used for acquisition, but not to part two? And I wonder if through town moderator I could redirect that back to Mr. Welch. It's my understanding that just as funds could be used to repair the roof of Town Hall or any other building, they could be used on the Hamilton Farm buildings.
Mr. Welch.
The speaker is correct.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? I'm sorry, I forgot you. Sorry, need a mic. Excuse me,
Mr. Moderator, this is Bill Swan from Precinct 7. When would be the next time we could take this up? And when could it be effective based on the warrant and things like that for our upcoming town meetings?
The question was, if we indefinitely postpone it, when would the next time this could come up? Let me see if I can answer that. It probably could come up in the annual town meeting, and of course by that time you'll know whether or not the override for 1.5% on the taxes for this committee has passed. And so if the proponents filed on time with the Board of Selectmen, it would be an automatic on the agenda for the annual town meeting, which starts in late April. Yes, sir? You want to clarify my answer? How dare you? Mr. Mataro.
At risk of life and limb. There's some quirks about the only times that a CPA can be put on the ballot. They can only put on the general election late March, or the annual statewide election every other November. So we're in a little bit of a quandary here as to when to bring this up. If we wait until it actually passes, it's too late generally to get it on the warrant of the next town meeting. So we're into a 6-7 month delay before it's passed, unless we get, before it's into a town meeting. And we'd have to have a special town meeting to go over this. So at some point, we may want to talk about this theoretically. I understand a lot of the points Mr. Friesel made about this being perhaps premature for tonight. I'm not sure I understand the harm of passing this and fixing it later, but I'm not going to fuss with that point. The point is, it's likely to come up, and I'd like this point here, it's likely to come up in a theoretical context in advance at some point. If town meeting thinks they need more time and are willing to talk about this in the spring, even if the CPA does not pass on March 27th, that would be probably fine with us who are proposing this.
Okay, the question comes on the motion for indefinite postponement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that I appreciate everybody staying this late, and I think that it was a very, very historic town meeting, and hopefully sends a clear message to the citizens. It's moved and seconded that the meeting be dissolved. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Interesting comment to wrap up town meeting with, if you were just listening to that, sending a clear message to the citizens. If you're just tuning in, there was a 4-article special town meeting tonight, mostly dealing with the issues of the so-called Hamilton Farm in the west side of town. Let me recap what has happened this evening. The moderator opened with his comments saying that the town had a very narrow window to make a very important decision. There were 3 options on board for the farm: to buy it and preserve it, to buy it and develop it, or to buy it now and decide later what to do with it. Article 1 was an authorization by the Board of, for the Board of Selectmen to purchase this property for $13.5 million. Tom Howley from the board said he assumed that the town meeting members were aware of the historic and visual significance of the farm from a substantial number of public hearings and publicity. He said that the Board of Selectmen had received had narrowed their list, they had requested proposals for development or partial development of the farm and had received 9 proposals, of which they had whittled it down to a short list of 5, which varied from the Trust for Public Land, which was proposing to pay the town $5.1 million and build 10 single-family homes. Other various proposals for different numbers of condos and for single-family homes. The selectmen also said they believed that all of those proposals could be improved upon and would come back to town meeting before any final decision was made. Chris Linsky from the Finance Committee talked about the impact and the cost on financial impact on town services. Finance Committee recommended buying the farm and commented on the detrimental effects of a 40B rental project that was proposed for it. Anthony Conti, town meeting member, talked about the risks. He said that all of these changes, all of these proposals would require zoning changes. He urged town meeting members to be realistic, and he said only the Abbott proposal is realistic. Susan UMass from the Hamilton Farm Interest Group showed a video. Unfortunately, they were not able to see the video in the hall. If you were watching here, you did see it here. She also commented that it is available on YouTube. It was an 8-minute video that you were able to watch at home. Avalon Bay also came back with a proposal in response to the Board of Selectmen's request for proposals, scaling down somewhat their original proposal. We heard from Steve Parkhurst, town meeting member, who commented on some previous purchases by the town, such as the Common, Manchester Field, and Town Forest, and urged town meeting to pass Articles 1 and 2 to retain control of the land. He said, take action tonight because it is a historical opportunity. Town meeting member Carl Frizel commented on the dangers to go to the voters without a commitment. In case you hadn't known, Article 2 was amended to say that to authorize the selectmen to sell it, sell off development rights for not less than $7 million. He urged passage of that article as amended because it's the most important vote is going to, in his words, the most important vote was going to be with the voters on March 13th, who, as you may know, is a special election to authorize an override for $13.5 million for that purchase. A town meeting member read a petition of the neighbors, and we went into recess. After recess, we heard from Ellen Burkhart, town meeting member, who said she, quote unquote, wholeheartedly supported the override, and commented that historically she has not been in favor of overrides. She said that Avalon Bay did not anticipate the town's resolve, and that also this is not the proposal or the time to decide which proposal, forum to decide which proposal is the best. Well, that moved us to a vote, and surprisingly or not, for Article 1, authorizing the town to purchase the land, passed by a vote of 151 to 1. Article 2, authorizing the Board of Selectmen to sell all or part of it, was approved by a vote of 147 to 3. And Article 3, to allow the selectmen to exercise that right of first refusal was unanimously passed. So all three articles passed almost unanimously tonight. Article 4 was an article to form a community preservation committee. This is a committee that's required if a town adopts the Community Preservation Act. That Community Preservation Act will be voted on in the municipal election at the end of March. This was an attempt by some local residents to get sort of ahead of this CPA and get a committee formed in case the town does decide to adopt the Community Preservation Act. Richard Rohan, the proponent of the article, said that, commented on the fact that the CPA is a 1.5% surcharge on the residents' taxes that can be spent for open space, historic preservation, or affordable housing, with a minimum of 10% per year spent on each one of those. The remaining 70% is divided up by the recommendation of this Community Preservation Committee. He said that he keeps complete local control of the funds, and compared to the Capital Planning Committee, in having up to 9 members appointed by the town. Helen Filio rose to urge indefinite postponement. She said it was premature to form a committee before the act was passed. Carl Frizel again rose and said it was too important a committee controlling a lot of funds to rush into it at this late hour on this town meeting session. The vote was taken, indefinite postponement was passed, so Article 4 was indefinitely postponed. And again, as you just saw, the moderator said that this town meeting had sent a clear message to the voters of the town, and of course we will be covering that election on March 13th, as well as our annual election on at the end of March. Just before we go, a couple of program notes here. If you're watching us live on the 26th, you have another opportunity to get more informed about Hamilton Farm on Wednesday, February 28th at 7:30. We'll have a live broadcast produced by the League of Women Voters, which will discuss Hamilton Farm. It's a forum. It'll be on Channel 9 or Channel 37 if you're watching on Verizon. Another reminder that audio from all of the town municipal meetings is available on our website, www.wincam.org. You want to click on Archives. They're pretty much up to date. We have a few computer issues that might have the most recent ones being a bit delayed, but again, if you want to review what's happened at town meetings, go to our website, www.wincam.org. And that brings us to the finish of our coverage for tonight. We want to thank you for joining us. It's getting a little late at 10:30. We hope that you were informed and entertained by town meeting tonight, but mostly informed. So for all of us here at WinCam, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Alan Iden. Have a great night.